What's up, guys? In this video, where to stay in Mexico City. Where you stay is going to be the #1 factor determining your experience in Mexico City. And so in this video, I'm going to break down some of the best neighborhoods and where you should stay depending on what type of person you are. So whether you're a tourist visiting for 1 week, or a digital nomad staying for 1 to 3 months, or an expat looking to stay for the long term, a year or more. So for each type of person, I'm going to break down what the best neighborhoods are and what's the best for your situation. So let's crack right into the video. So I guess to kick things off, the two biggest neighborhoods that you're going to see digital nomads in, that you're going to see expats in, frankly, of all types, is going to be Polanco, as well as Roma Norte, Condesa down here. So this is Condesa, this is Roma Norte, and this is typically where you're going to see the highest concentration of gringos, of expats, of international people, either in the Polanco area or in the Condesa, Roma Norte area. So one of the most common questions that we get in our group chats, and by the way, we have a Mexico enthusiast group chat with like 700 people in it that you can join as well. But one of the most common questions we get is, should I stay in Polanco or should I stay in Condesa, Roma Norte? And the short answer is that Polanco is where the business community is, and it's where the embassies are. So if you're doing paperwork, if you're visiting embassies, if you have business meetings, you're going to want to stay in Polanco because a lot of those business meetings are going to take place here. But if you're looking to go to restaurants and nightclubs, party a little bit, eat street tacos and so forth, then you're going to want to be in Condesa, Roma Norte. And by the way, there's actually not that much street food in Condesa, so if you really want street food, you're going to want to go to Roma Norte or other parts of the city. But in any case, if you're kind of a high-end business traveler or you're doing embassy appointments, you can go to Polanco. Or otherwise, if you're looking for a more authentic Mexico experience, you're looking to see what Mexico has to offer, you want the sights, the colors, the sounds, the flavors, that's when you want to start looking at Condesa, Roma Norte. And by the way, these areas might look close by, but if you're in rush hour traffic, it's going to take a very long time to get across. So I'm filming this at like noon on a Monday, and let's just say we wanted to go from Parque España to Museo Sumaya. How long is that going to take? Okay, not bad. Well, it says only 17 minutes right now, but I can tell you when I'm trying to organize dinners and stuff in Mexico City, if someone's in Polanco, they're like, oh, no, I'm not going to Roma Norte in rush hour. It's going to take 45 minutes to get there. So I guess a little more traffic at rush hour, you know, at 4 p.m. But what I was trying to say, I didn't fully prove my point, I guess, but what I was trying to say is that Polanco and Roma Norte Condesa, it feels very far. Like it feels further than it actually is, just due to the insane level of traffic in Mexico City. Remember, you're looking at a city with 15-20 million people in the metro area, and these are the most important areas. And so there's really a lot of density, especially Monday to Friday, especially in rush hour. And so you really want to choose one or the other. Speaking of one or the other, you're probably wondering, well, what other options are there? It looks like there's kind of these neighborhoods in the middle. And there's this one called Anzures, where you could definitely stay, pretty good area. There's another one here called Cuauhtemoc. You could definitely stay here as well. Definitely lots of expats, digital nomads, etc. We have the Ángel de la Independencia, which is one of the most famous monuments here, kind of in the center of Cuauhtemoc. So I know people who actually live here full time, and they kind of like how they're kind of in the middle between Polanco and Roma Norte. The thing is, there's really a lot of offices right around here and business stuff going on this street. One of the most famous streets in all of Mexico, really. And so it's pretty noisy, it's pretty loud. And if you're going to live in a place like Cuauhtemoc, you got to be used to noise. There's not too many nooks and crannies where you can hide here. It's overall going to be pretty loud and very urban jungly. So that's something to consider as well. And I think there was another area I wanted to show you here. Oh yeah, okay, so San Rafael is basically like thematically an extension of staying in Cuauhtemoc or Anzures, but San Rafael is going to be a little bit cheaper. Okay, so this area up here near Revolucion is going to be a little bit cheaper, kind of because it's culturally getting closer to the centro. By the way, I forgot to mention, most people do not want to stay in Mexico City, sorry, in the centro in Mexico City. The downtown is a little bit sketchy. At night, sometimes it gets dark. You're the only person on the street. Doesn't feel super safe. It's overall pretty safe, like safer than most American cities at this point. But most expats do not stay in downtown Mexico City. We can do a little street view, see what it looks like. I mean, definitely lots of cool old buildings and history, and a lot of the museums are downtown, as well as the Zocalo and some famous old churches and stuff. But I highly recommend you don't stay downtown. But this area, as I was mentioning, San Rafael, is one that's actually growing in popularity. It's gentrifying a fair amount, and you can still get good deals on rent here, where renting here in San Rafael is going to be significantly cheaper than just on the other side in a place like Cuauhtemoc or Anzures. Okay? So we talked about sort of the duality of Polanco and Roma Norte Condesa. We've also mentioned some of these neighborhoods in the middle can be a good fit as well if you kind of want that balance. I don't want to do the whole video about Roma Norte Condesa. You probably know it's amazing. You probably know you kind of get access to these amazing parks, and you can hang out here and go for a coffee. And if you have the money, Condesa is definitely the place to be. It's expensive though. It's going to be basically US prices for most things, restaurants and so forth, and rent obviously. So Condesa is the most in-demand area of the city, largely because you have these two parks here. You have Parque Mexico and Parque España, and then on the other side, you're quite close to Chapultepec as well. Although it feels like you're kind of barriered away from it because there's a highway and some really busy streets. So you kind of feel closer to these little parks than you do to Chapultepec itself. But it is still walkable, Chapultepec. And then you're probably wondering, like, okay, like give me some other things that I don't know. Give me some other recommendations here on neighborhoods, on where to stay. So if you want an even more authentic experience and you don't want to be all the way here in a place like San Rafael, you don't want to be totally in the middle of everything, you want to be somewhere a little bit more chill, maybe a little bit cheaper, and have an authentic experience, I'm going to recommend Navarte Poniente and then Colonia del Valle. So, and also Nápoles. So these are kind of the new up and coming areas where it's going to be cheaper rent. A lot of well-to-do Mexicans who work in Mexico City are moving here because they're kind of getting priced out of the most popular areas, and they're moving to these areas here, which are really side by side. You have Nápoles, Colonia del Valle, and you have Navarte. And it's a lot cheaper here. Like, I have a buddy that I visited just earlier this year, and he was paying something like $1,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment, or even I think it was 4-bedroom apartment, which would be literally impossible in Condesa. Like in Condesa, it's going to be $1,000 for a studio or a 1-bedroom if you're lucky, maybe even more. So here is the new kind of place to be. You have this area called the World Trade Center, where there's some gyms, there's restaurants, there's things like that, high-end gyms, and you really have everything to make it a pretty solid vortex zone. So it's getting more hipster too, right? And you're gonna have more street food. So in a lot of ways, this is sort of the new vortex zone. Nápoles, Colonia del Valle, and Navarte. This is the new Roma Norte in a lot of ways, okay? And then there's this other area I would mention called Escandon. There's some universities, I believe, here, and like schools or something. I remember seeing a lot of students when I was hanging out around here. And this is a good hipster area too, because you're near Condesa, but you're not in Condesa. So it's going to be cheaper. It might be slightly more dangerous, a little bit more concrete jungle-y, because you don't really have a lot of access to parks. But you do have maybe some subway access with Patriotismo subway station here. Tacubaya down here. So there is that. So Escandon, I would say, is thematically similar to being in Nápoles or Colonia del Valle, where it's cheaper. but you're still going to have everything that you need. Okay? I think the problem with Escandon is it is a little bit smaller. Like, you kind of feel boxed in by these major streets here. So you're kind of just stuck in this small little area. And it is still quite loud and noisy. So I think for something a bit more chill, I would try to be down here a little bit more in the south. Okay? And then you're probably wondering, well, what about this kind of area here? You don't want to be in Doctores. It's a little bit more dangerous. I think it's sort of gentrifying on this sort of western side of Doctores that borders Roma Norte and La Romita. La Romita is pretty cool too. But yeah, most people really don't want to be in Doctores, and I think most locals tell you not to be in Doctores, not to be in Obrera, not to be in Buenos Aires neighborhood here. So I would avoid all this area, the same reason that I would avoid Centro. And then a couple more options further away for an even more chill experience is Coyoacán. So you've probably heard of Coyoacán. It shows up on a lot of things to do in Mexico City lists because there's really a lot of just like cool cultural stuff to do. There's the Frida Kahlo Museum. There's a lot of colonial architecture. There's a big mercado, which I've gone to eat tlayudas and local foods and stuff. There's a couple of parks and lots of cultural things to do. This is the mercado here. So Coyoacán is definitely somewhere you could stay. I've heard it's getting a lot more expensive right now, where it's basically just as expensive as being up in the Gringo areas. And the only problem with Coyoacán, it is nice. I've been in this park here, Viveros de Coyoacán. It's like a big tree-covered park. So Coyoacán's cool. The only problem is you're pretty damn far from somewhere like a Roma Norte. So if I put La Romita here, even though it's pretty much a straight shot, it's still like a half hour in an Uber. And that's as a straight shot. And it would be even a little bit further to get Condesa, and it would be a lot further to get to Museo Sumaya. So how far would Museo Sumaya be? Yeah, so half hour, whole bunch of traffic, right? So that's kind of the downside with Coyoacán, is that it's just very far from things. And it's important to realize that when you're far from things, it's really going to change your experience about how you go about your life. Because if you have buddies in the city and they're all up in Condesa and they say, hey, yeah, let's go to dinner, blah, blah, blah. You're like, I don't know. Like you just kind of start saying no to more things because you don't want to Uber a half hour there and a half hour back, get caught in traffic, all that type of hassle. So that's kind of the downside to being in Coyoacán. I will mention that there is also this area. There's a couple areas around here too that's starting to get more gringos. So there's kind of Jardines de Pedregal, which is like mansions basically, and you start to see a lot of rich people. And then San Angel. Remind me where San Angel is. Yes, so this is San Angel, really quite close to Coyoacán and culturally quite similar to Coyoacán in the sense that it's got markets. It's really famous for the weekend market, San Angel. It's got some museums. There's actually a Museo Sumaya museum here that's in like a converted factory. And there's a lot of really cool colonial streets here. It actually kind of reminded me of San Miguel de Allende. Like when you look at some of these streets, doesn't this look exactly like San Miguel or Guanajuato? And so there's all these cool streets around here down in San Angel. It's kind of a small area, but it's pretty cool. It's walkable. It's very safe. And it's going to be a lot less expensive even than Coyoacán, and certainly compared to the center of Mexico City. So look at this. Like, this is honestly pretty cool. This reminds me a lot of San Miguel. And so if you wanted a place that was chill and away from everything, where maybe you can grind on work and it's a little bit quieter, I could definitely recommend Coyoacán or San Angel for you. The downside is you're just going to be very far from the Gringo Vortex zone of Condesa, Roma, and then Polanco if you then need to go meet up with buddies, okay? So just to summarize maybe the 4 or 5 areas that we talked about, So Centro is basically a no-go zone. I wouldn't stay there personally, nor would I stay in a lot of the areas that we didn't mention, such as Doctores or a lot of these areas around the center. So that's where you do not want to stay. And then in terms of where you do want to stay, Polanco is a consideration if you're more of a business guy or international embassy appointments and so forth. You have Cuauhtémoc, Anzures, and San Rafael in the middle here. If you want a very concrete jungle, but right in the middle of everything type of vibe where you're going to have street food, you're going to be in the middle of everything, you're probably going to have to put up with a little bit of noise, but you're going to be pumping with energy. And honestly, it's not the worst thing. It's a pretty good place to stay. So that's definitely one option if you're down to be the type of person that's in the middle of everything. And then we have Condesa and Roma, which can be further broken down. Maybe we'll have to do a super deep dive on Condesa Roma in another video. But you have Condesa, you have Ipódromo, which in my mind is really all the same thing. You have Roma Norte, you have La Romita up in the corner here. And it's pretty expensive. Rent is expensive in this area. Restaurants are expensive, but it's highly walkable. It's very safe, and it's a really, really high standard of living, and it's really very green as well. I'll do a quick additional street view here. Well-trodden streets. Spent a lot of time walking this little walking trail in here. And yeah, you know, it's a great place to be. It's not like absolutely insanely expensive, but it's, you know, one of the most expensive areas in the city. And then if you're looking to save money while still kind of having access to the Gringo Vortex zone, you could look at Escandón, you can look at Nápoles, Colonia del Valle, and Navarrete, okay? So these four areas, I would say, are kind of the new hipster area where it's going to be a much lower cost of living. It's going to be much cheaper. The restaurants are going to be more authentic. You're going to see some gringos, but definitely less gringos. But overall, a pretty solid place to stay. And then down in the south, we have Coyoacán and San Angel, where you're going to be further away from things, but it's a pretty cool experience. I mean, you have these areas that kind of look like San Miguel de Allende or Guanajuato, where it's colonial buildings. It's pretty nice. It's pretty walkable. You'll have access to some parks and plazas, and it's just going to be a more chill existence. So hopefully this video shed some light on some of the different areas where you can stay in Ciudad de Mexico to have the best possible experience. Remember, logistics and where you stay, even down to the block, is really going to have a huge impact on your experience as a traveler and in Mexico City. So hopefully this video was helpful for you. And check out some of our other travel guide videos. Join our Telegram group, join our mailing list for secret LATAM knowledge. And if you want to work with us directly because either you want residency in Mexico or you need help with relocation to Mexico, either as a digital nomad, expat, family, or retiree, then you can book a call with us. There's going to be a link in the description to get the process started with working with us personally. Catch you in the next video.